is Kirk Binder. Unspoken Love. Unspoken Love, Kirk Binder.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests and distinguished judges. When you were young, did you have someone so close to you that they were like a second mother or a second father? Maybe it was a school teacher, a coach, a scoutmaster, a neighbor. Or in my case, it was my mom's best friend, Reese Herger. Reese Herger insisted that I and all my siblings call her Aunt Reese. And the title of Aunt was something that she demonstrated every time we were with her. What's neat about Aunt Reese was that her son was my best friend, and we were born on the same day. I remember Aunt Reese walking up to her house and ringing the doorbell. Her house was really a home because when you rang the doorbell, you just walked in. She always had a jar of pretzels, and they were at least this long, or at least they seemed that way. And every time I went to see Aunt Reese, she would give me the pretzel, and I would hold it as if it had been given to me by the Queen. Now, my best friend Steve and I usually got into a lot of trouble. One Saturday afternoon, Steve, my brother, and I were at their home, and we saw an ad in Boys Life magazine. It said for only $5, you could send away and get a live 6-inch alligator. The plan was hatched. Piggy banks were broken. We decided we were going to get that gator. But we weren't going to tell anybody. So we took our money and started filling up the envelope. But we forgot one thing. A stamp! My buddy Steve looked at me and said, "Go talk to Aunt Reese and get a stamp." So I walked into the kitchen. I said, "Aunt Reese, do you have a stamp?" She looked at me and said, "Sure, but what do you need it for?" Now, being around Aunt Reese was like getting an instant shot of sodium pentothal. You couldn't lie to her. You didn't want to lie to her. She was such a caring, loving individual, and dare I say, a saint. So I said, "Come on, let's go." We walked into the other room and the gig was up. We had the money, and we told her that we wanted a gator. Now, you'd think a lot of moms would say, "You guys are crazy. What are you thinking about? We live in Pennsylvania. Why would you go get a gator?" But she didn't say that. She said, "That's a great idea. But maybe you want to talk to your mom first, because a gator's going to need heat. So why don't you go talk to her, and she may not want a gator." She gave us unspoken love. She cared for us. She didn't poo-poo what we were trying to do. She said, "Hey, you can do this." So we went home, and my mom said yes. Within 3 weeks, we had a 6-inch long gator. Within a couple years, we had a 3-foot long gator, which we actually gave away to the zoo after the incident with my Scottish Terrier. As I grew up, my problems with gators turned to girls, and Aunt Reese always had a listening ear. Think about that person that was so close to you and how they listened to you and they supported you and everything that you tried to do, they said, "Yeah, go for it." That is exactly what Aunt Reese was like. Her son Steve and I were best friends. We're still best friends today. We both went to college, and after college, we looked at each other and said, now what? We had another brilliant idea, but it had nothing to do with gators. We said, let's move to Texas. So we packed up our bags, got in vehicles, and drove to Austin, Texas, where we lived for several years. After about the second or third year, word came that Aunt Reese had breast cancer. There was a surgery upcoming, a lot of chemotherapy afterwards. She survived the operation. She survived the chemotherapy. She was a very strong woman, and everybody in our community was pulling for her. The prognosis was good. Later that year, I went home for Christmas, and I thought, I need to go see Aunt Reese. She's so important to me. But I never did. I don't know whether I was thinking that somehow I'd catch cancer, or I didn't want to be around her because she didn't have hair. I didn't know. I went back to Texas, and Steve and I were off on our adventures, and about 8 months later, he called me from his office. He said, I'm going to the airport. My mom just died. I felt a great sense of guilt and anguish over that. And he said to me, always tell your mom and dad that you love them, because you don't know if they'll be here tomorrow. And I did that. I called my parents and I said, I love you. Unspoken love was spoken. Who in your life is so special that they've supported you and helped you, but you've never said those words to them? Look at today as an opportunity to make spoken love spoken, and just say to them, I've been meaning to tell you, I love you. Mr. Toastmaster.